place that light is afraid to touch, where the monsters beneath your bed and hiding behind your fear refuse to travel. Do you dare? Is your mind capable of the sights you will see? Is your body prepared for the sounds you will hear? Is your spirit up to the challenge of what you soon may feel? If so, have a seat with the seductress of the dark, Sarah Terror, the Sultan of Sadism, Chunky Larry, and the Clown Prince of Fear, R.Lee Grind. This is the Ghoul Kids Table.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to a special version of the Ghoul Kids Table. We are doing something slightly different for this week's episode. We are going to be doing a top five. Last week, we were covering the film Terrifier 2, and we both were absolutely gushing over Lauren Lavera and her kind of having the chops to be one of the great final girls. And we talked a little bit about what final girls meant to us then. And it was kind of in that spirit that we felt like we would do a top five final girls. Now, we don't have our favorite final girl with us this week. Tragic Rar is still on that assignment. It's a pesky assignment, but an assignment nonetheless. And we miss her. I miss her. I don't know about you, R.Lee, but
Oh,
I
I,
miss her a lot. I'm not going
I
to
do.
speak for R.Lee.
I do. I do. I
You
miss her.
sure? You-
I miss you both when we're not doing this or
I miss
when
you when we're
regular.
not
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm in the shower alone and it's
yeah,
like, where's my Larry?
yeah. Same. I'm
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
shower and I go on to our fucking messenger thread and I'm trying to be naked for you and you're not there and I just feel naked.
Naked without a purpose.
Naked without a clown. But like I said, we're going to be talking about our top five final girls. And before we get into our top five final girls, I just wanted, R.Lee, if you could, to have you explain what a final girl is for you.
Ooh, so this is. I actually saw an interesting little tidbit on the Tickum talks about this and
Mm.
how the phrase "final girl" didn't really get started until the 90s. It didn't become a part of our culture and our conversation until the 90s. And we looked back and we associate the term "final girl" with a survivor and, in some cases, a fighter that perseveres over the villain in a horror film. In a horror film, I think that's a fair assessment when it comes to defining what a final girl is. The survivor and the fighter that perseveres over the villain in a horror film. That would be
And
my definition.
for me, it's somebody who isn't necessarily a badass to begin with. Somebody that makes a transition from being kind of vulnerable to finding that strength that's required to survive ultimately in the end, and is brave in the face of fear. And a lot of the times, there's, because the subject that we talk about every week is horror, and part of that is that, there is supposed to be fear, and courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to act in the presence of fear. And to me, that's what a final girl should exemplify, is courage. So they should show vulnerability, but they should ultimately have a resolve that allows them to overcome these insurmountable odds. And that's a hero's journey, is the story of a final girl. And there's a plethora of examples within the horror genre, and a lot of the times the horror genre gets lumped in with this kind of misogynistic outlook that they're ugly and kind of mean spirited. But in my opinion, the horror genre is one of the most feminist fucking genres that exists, much more so than romantic comedies. In romantic comedies, they're always kind of Mary Sue's that are kind of shown the error of their ways when the right man comes along, and that's kind of, to me, kind of, a dismissal of the female experience. Now, I'm not a woman, so when I say the female experience, it seems like a weird thing to say, but my interpretation of the female experience is that, they're vulnerable people, just like I'm a vulnerable person. I have emotions. I cry. I don't think that that's a specific female trait, but it seems like that's the way it's represented in film. That women are often looked at as these weak things that need protection, and the final girl is the antithesis of that. It's great if you're there, but if push comes to shove, I'm going to be able to get myself out of this situation, and that is what a final girl is to me.
Very well said. Very well said.
But let's start at 5 and work our way up to number 1. R.Lee, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a recent addition to the pantheon of violence, and my number 5 is Sienna from Terrifier 2.
Very nice.
She made my top 5.
I
This
I
this
almost
this
put her
gal.
in.
Oh, all right, all right. I mean,
Spoiler alert, I didn't.
here's why I think she deserves it. As you pointed out, she makes that hero's journey. She starts out very vulnerable, um, and she is not immune to fear. She is not immune to terror or to physical harm, but she meets it and rises above. She is a young woman who, when faced with extraordinary circumstances, acts extraordinarily, and so that's why she makes my list.
And again, she's definitely a contender. Like, she would definitely be in my honorable mentions category, but that's one of the things about this top 5 thing that is going to be difficult, is narrowing it down to 5 people. And for me, the 5 that I chose, I put higher than her, and so it was like, because then it's at that point, it's like, all right, well, who do I cut out of my 5 in sake of Sierra? And I couldn't make peace with getting rid of any of the 5 that I put in. My number 5 is Alice from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. I fucking love this character so goddamn much. She is the perfect example in a lot of ways of the template of what a final girl is. She's very bookish and reserved, and she lives in her head in these daydreams to kind of work as a coping mechanism for this ugly experience that she finds herself in. She's living with an alcoholic. Her mom's dead, and she has to play mom in the house because the mom is gone, which is a very, in my opinion, realistic approach to that family dynamic. That family dynamic absolutely exists. And, through the course of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, she transitions into this very tough and brave character. And in 5, you know, when it's hard to keep that idea going, but I think that they do a really good job of it by making her vulnerable again with the pregnancy and the loss of her boyfriend Dan, and these maternal instincts wanting to protect, and all of those things kind of kicking in. The Dan's parents wanting to take uh, her son from her before he was even born, and her having to find the strength to stand up to them. It's a great example of a character that grows over the course of a sequel. But you, number four, R.Lee.
Number four is Alice. That's my
From
number four.
Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah,
4.
yeah, it is.
Nice.
She's my number four. Pretty much for all the same reasons that you mentioned. She's portrayed as a very real person, and not only is she facing these extraordinary circumstances, but she's also facing those real life hardships, and that's what makes her character so relatable. Uh, and I would imagine, I can only speak from the male perspective, but I imagine from the female perspective that some women have felt those things, and uh, can definitely relate. I mean, even as a male, I've felt some of those things.
Yeah.
Uh, it's absolutely understandable that she would react in the way she does, but she overcomes so very much, and that's why she earned a number four slot.
And she in four, she takes on the personalities of the people that she lost. She is like absorbing not only their powers but pieces of them. And I I know you've dealt with loss. I've dealt with loss. There's there's a part of you that wants to try to keep those people alive in any way that you can, and it's done kind of cinematically in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but it's still very reminiscent of the idea of you're trying to just keep a piece of them with you, and I think that that's a good storytelling template that they use. For me, for my number four, I went with Jenny from Friday the 13th Part 2. I, I she's one of those rare situations where the wisecracking smart aleck know-it-all ends up having this kind of humanity that makes her able to be rooted for. Because a lot of the times whenever they write a strong female character, in my opinion, it feels like she's always infallible. And I don't see Jenny as infallible. I see her as very flawed in certain ways, but ultimately has this heart that makes her strong. And she has the child psychology background, which also comes into play in terms of you telling that story with that character, and ultimately what helps her survive this hillbilly in a burlap sack.
Oh, so it's kind of crazy how much we think alike. Because guess who my number three is?
Shut up.
I'm serious. She's my
Right,
number three.
so I'm just like a slight step behind you on every single one of these.
Well, I think the top two are going to be very different for us. I hope. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe
The
not.
way this list is going, probably
right.
not.
But one thing I loved about Jenny is her resourcefulness. Um, yes, she was painted out as a flawed person. She had those flaws, but at the same time, her resourcefulness in the times that she needed, that makes her a hero in my book. Like that's a truly heroic thing, and I absolutely just adore her. And I've actually got to meet her at a convention, and
Amy Steele's amazing, isn't
yes, she is Ginny in real life. Like when
she? Yeah.
you're just talking to her, like she's just like she's a really cool person. So
Yeah.
and maybe that biased my ranking a little bit, but I absolutely adore her. So she's my number three.
Yeah, and she would have easily been my number three, but again, the closer we get to the top, the harder that this shit gets.
It's so
And
hard.
and so If you say this is your number two, I swear to fuck. My number three is Sarah Connor.
She made my honorable mention list, but
Okay, we
no,
broke the cycle.
yeah,
We
we
broke
broke
the
it, we
cycle.
broke it, we broke it. Yeah, she's not my top five.
Okay, because uh, very much like Alice in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, she has a transition with Terminator and Terminator 2. For me, Terminator is a fucking horror movie. Like that's a straight up slasher film.
It is.
It's a robot instead of, a guy in a mask. Um, but it's paced like a slasher film and it's great. When you're initially introduced to Sarah Connor, she's just kind of a valley girl. She's just getting through life. She's not particularly weak, but she's definitely not strong in any way. And by the end of the film, she is a fucking badass, and it's just surviving. And she's not even like a badass, but she's tough. She's found that strength and that resolve to continue on and push, even though the circumstances are dire. And then when you're introduced to her in Terminator 2, she's like the ultimate female badass character. Like she's doing fucking pull-ups in a tank top with
But
her fucking bed.
she's still broken as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not elevating her to this superhero status. We still get to see her flaws, and I think yeah, she's fucking amazing.
And it's the rest of the world thinks she's crazy. Her son thinks she's crazy because the story that she's telling is so fantastical that it's impossible to believe that this killer robot came from the future to try to kill me, to kill my son before he's able to be born, because he's going to be the hero that rises up against these. Like when you say it out loud, it sounds like it's fucking crazy babble. And so it's very easy to believe that she's a fucking lunatic. That's why in the beginning of the movie, she's in an insane asylum. And I kind of, to an extent, rightly so, because she's unhinged. And you see that when she goes to Miles Dyson's house, and she's ready to fucking kill this guy in front of his kids and be the exact same thing that she's trying to stop. And there's this weird shift in her character at that point. She's so adamant on stopping the future of this horrible atrocity from taking place that she's willing to do the exact same thing that the robot was willing to do. And it's in those moments that she creates this bond with this thing that she's feared. And so it's not about defeating the monster, it's about accepting the monster and making peace with it, ultimately in order to make peace with yourself. And that is like, fuck, wow, that's like great hero arc shit, you know what I
It
mean?
is.
and
It is.
and it's and it's not inherently because she's a woman. Like that works for a male character as well. And like that is just a great fucking story arc, is that you know to avoid the monster, you become the monster, and you become aware of the fact that you're becoming the monster. And then you're in this crossroads of, do I do what I know is right, or do I do what I know is right? Because both are right choices, but there's a level of wrong to both of them. And it's just, that quandary of that character is fucking terrific to me.
Very well put. And I would agree with you. I mean, I wanted to put her on my list so bad, but like I said, she gets honorable mention.
Yeah, she got honorable mention for Sienna. See, I
Yeah,
didn't put Sienna, so she
yeah.
didn't get
So,
honorable
so we just kind of
we
switched up.
switchy pooed.
Oh,
All right,
so are we ready for number two?
let's go to number two.
Aaron from Your Next.
Ooh,
So,
this is a movie I have not seen.
oh, you haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, okay. So I'm partial to this film for a few reasons. One of the reasons it was filmed in my hometown. I know the
Hmm.
locations. I need to do a TikTok or something and like show you all the house because it's out in the country club area. It's super
We'll make a
nice.
TikTok.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll definitely do that. But so Erin really doesn't have an arc, so to say. She is. Oh man, you haven't seen the movie, so I don't want to like give away too much. But
We should cover that
okay, okay.
because that's got Barbara Crampton in it, right?
It does. It does.
Yes,
Barbara
I'm
Crampton was
in.
in my hometown.
I'm
So,
in.
so without spoiling anything, this is someone who has the capabilities to be a badass, but is trying to fit within normal society. And then some bad shit happens. And she's like, oh, I got to turn that switch. And she does. And she totally turns that fucking switch. And I think she's kind of an underrated final girl,
Mhm.
but she's totally awesome. And again, it's one of those characters that's not immune to pain, fear, or any of this. And she's for she's basically forced to make a decision at the end of this film, and I'm glad she makes the decision that she does. So I don't want to spoil it for you, or anyone else who hasn't seen it. And like I said, this is kind of an odd pick for me, or odd pick for most people. But Aaron from Your Next is my number two.
I'm definitely gonna get on watching that movie. I promise. I'm sorry. I'm a bad fan. I'm so sorry.
Oh, and fun fact, I did the Halloween fan film, and
Mhm.
I worked with some of the special effects people from Your Next on that film.
Nice.
So yeah, it was really cool, and I got to hear a lot of behind the scenes stories while we were
Fuck yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's a little close to the heart.
All right. So my number two is it was so hard to put her at number two. This shit like with number two and number one, I was just like, fuck, because either one could be my number two and either one could be my number one. But to make this admission just hurts me deep inside. My number two is Nancy Thompson. I
I knew that was
am
coming in at number two or number one.
I am a fucking diehard Nightmare on Elm Street fan. Like I am a Fredhead, like you fucking read about or watch on documentaries. But I I have that is the movie that made me a fan of horror films. That movie ultimately shaped everything that came after. Like there are very few films in my life where it's like an aha light switch kind of moment. And Nightmare on Elm Street is completely that for me. And a lot of people they look at Nightmare on Elm Street, they think Freddy Krueger. For me, when I look at Nightmare on Elm Street, I think of Nancy Thompson because Nancy Thompson is her mom says it best. You face things. That's your power. That's your gift. She faces everything head on. She faces her father. She faces her mother. She faces the daunting task that's been put in her path, and the consequences of her parents' actions. And you know, I relate so much to Nancy Thompson being the child of a broken home with a parent who's an alcoholic. Uh, you know, that was one of the kind of benchmarks and hallmarks of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is that the characters, while still being kind of cinematic, represent the struggles of being a teenager in America. In every single one of the films, they talk about teenage pregnancy, teenage suicide. They talk about being a homosexual. They talk about broken homes. There's in every single one of the films, there's an element, a kernel of reality that exists with those characters, and it's largely due to the performance of Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson that that is even the way that it is. It's the strength of that performance. It's the strength and resolve that she acquires over the course of the film. You know, again, she's very modest and unassuming at the beginning of the film, and as the film progresses, you know, you get the vulnerability of her friends dying and this thing that's, you know, horrifying, and like the idea that you're not safe when you go to sleep, and then you know, trying to stay awake, so then you're fucking exhausted and you start to come off as irrational, and you know, all of these things kind of play out in that first film. In the third film, when she returns, she's haunted by the things that she encountered. She's tormented still to this day, to the point where she's medicating herself, you know, to protect herself. And it's again this coping mechanism, but she ultimately has to face it in order to protect her kids. And then in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I know she's playing Heather Langenkamp, but she's still carrying on the spirit of Nancy, and she's protecting by facing her fears to protect her son. And all three of those films, she's having to face the thing that she doesn't want to face, the thing that she tries to run away from. And it's just, it's brilliant performance from Heather Langenkamp. She's, to me, one of the sweetest humans like on this fucking earth right now. But also, there's just this heart to that performance that just is the testament of that film, and it's a good counterbalance to the monster. And, you know, that's ultimately another thing that I put into consideration when I put together this list is, you know, how do you counterbalance the dark? You're, you know, yang to its yin, and she does it better than just about anybody else. Not better than my next one. So we'll get into that.
I just wanted to say, I think one of the things, because we could probably go into Nightmare on Elm Street like well in depth and spend hours talking about it. But what about the metaphor living with the sins of your parents?
Mm-hmm.
Your parents make mistakes. They don't want you to make the same mistakes, but yet you still end up doing them. And Nancy personifies all of that so very well in that first film. And I think that, yeah, that's a fantastic choice. She makes my honorable mention list. Sorry, she's not in my top five.
I didn't think she was your number one. I would have
No.
I would have given you the biggest sloppiest wet kiss if she made your number one.
So she was in my top five, but like I said, there, you know, I had
Bumped her for Sienna.
I actually bumped her for Jenny because I really like she was my she was in the Jenny slot, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? No, I gotta give it to Miss Steele for. But I guess it's time for my number one.
Mm-hmm.
My little ghoulies, is it time already for Aunt Living Dead Delilah's Tubi horror movie recommendation? I'm gonna have to think about this one just for a moment. Oh, I know just the one. Blood Salvage from 1990. It's about a mechanic whose wife dies because she doesn't get the medical treatment that she so badly needed. Such is life in America. Anyways, he then takes it upon himself to start making cures and treatments for some very unwilling patients. And although his intentions are good, things end very, very badly. As always, Aunt Delilah thinks you're the ghoulist.
All right. So if a certain TikToker is listening to this episode, I think she might be very happy with me. My number one is Ellen Ripley.
Oh, so is mine. We don't even need to build any mystery.
No. Great minds think alike.
Let's talk about the wonder that is Sigourney
God.
Weaver's performance in the Alien films.
Oh my goodness. And in all of them. In all of
Every
them.
single fucking
Every
one.
single one. Like we don't just get a hero's journey, we get a hero's epic. And I guess we just start with Alien. This is a very practical, technical woman that knows her job, knows the ins and outs of what she is supposed to do and has to do. And while this creature is running amok on their ship, it comes down to Ripley being the one to sacrifice, not sacrifice, she doesn't really sacrifice her crew, but she has to lose her crew to this unstoppable creature, and she rises to the, and not only that, we got a demented alien droid, not alien droid, but an android that is acting so very human. Like a lot of people, I was like, look, you look at human beings as a species, and we are that android. We would do that if we see an opportunity to capitalize on something. We are going to take it. And Ellen combats. She's got android, she's got alien, and she's taking it all on and takes it in stride. Again, she exemplifies all the other traits. I think every single final girl we've mentioned, she's not perfect. She's not the ultimate badass. She's flawed. She's still rooted in a realistic human way, but she rises to the occasion. And then in Alien 2, I think that's Alien 2, Aliens, the sequel. That is probably why she made my number one.
For me, it's Alien 3.
Oh, see, and I would, if we were ranking her badassness, Alien 3 would be like, it would be Aliens then Alien 3.
Yeah. And I would do the inverse of that, because like her character deals with loss throughout her journey up to the point where she sacrifices herself. You can bring her character in Alien Resurrection into play if you want, but it's not Ripley. It's an amalgam of what Ripley is or was. Ripley made the ultimate heroic sacrifice for the greater good after all of the loss that she endured, being put into the sleep for years and years. She lost her daughter. Then she forms this bond with Newt, which is kind of a compensation for her loss, which again in itself is a means of coping, that she so vehemently protects Newt to the point where she uses Newt as her conduit to her daughter, and then Newt is killed, and it's and then she's alone on this fucking isolated prison planet, basically, where she's the only woman in a sea of men, and she has to blend and overcome that element. And then on top of that, there's you know this alien there that's wreaking havoc, and she is again confronted with the ghosts of her past. She can't get away from these things, and in Aliens, she comes back to a world that she doesn't recognize anymore because she has been gone for so long, so everything's different, and she feels like an outcast, so she almost throws herself into this situation to get out of that situation because at least that feels normal to her. And then by the third one, she's not, nothing's normal anymore, nothing feels right or good or safe, but she still picks herself up and fights, and it's not for her, it's for these people that are fucking awful, but
that
it's
she owes nothing to.
yeah.
Like not only are they accused of horrendous crimes, and but they're men,
Mhm.
and I don't care. Like I'm not trying to offend any listener or viewer at this point, but men and women are kind of adversaries in a lot of ways, and she is put or she finds herself on this planet of adversaries,
Yeah.
not just the extraterrestrial adversary, but that human adversary. I mean, at one point they try to essay her,
Yeah.
and like that's, I mean, pretty clear there. Like there's there is this inherent adversarial element between men and women that some men will do what they do,
Yeah.
and we I don't think we can really just ignore that. We have to, as men, we have to face that and say, look, not all of us are nice guys. you know there's some real shitbags amongst our tribe,
Mhm.
and if we don't police them up, then it's going to take an Ellen Ripley to beat their asses.
Exactly. Exactly.
She
uh
does. Oh, when she hits that guy, it's so satisfying.
like, I know a lot of people hate Alien 3 because it doesn't feel like Aliens. Aliens is such a fucking orgasm of a movie in every way, shape, and form. In the sense that it's, a big James Cameron action piece that still has horrific elements, but it's more of an action sci-fi. It feels equivalent in a lot of ways to Terminator 2 in the terms of, with Terminator, that's a straightforward fucking horror movie. With Terminator 2, it's a straightforward action movie. And the same could be said with Alien and Aliens in the sense that, you know, Alien is more of a claustrophobic, tension driven horror piece that just happens to have sci-fi elements. And Aliens is like a balls out action film and everybody's a badass.
I,
But
I would
she's
I would
not
say that Alien is a lot like Halloween, in the
fair.
sense that you have a stalker that is just picking people off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
You break it down to brass tacks. You have this thing uh, that's perceived evil that is just dispatching one by one as we go along, and like you said, lots of tension. There's moments in that film when he goes up into the ducks,
Yeah.
and like that for me is like the most intense scene of the movie. Like you're just waiting any moment. Oh, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And then, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. The Terminator and Alien comparison there. But then you have Terminator 3, which we won't discuss at all.
Yeah, let's
skip it. But but Aliens 3 is that's another horror film in itself.
It's a return to form in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and, David Fincher fucking murders that movie, dude. Like, and that's one of his first films, is it not?
Technically, I guess it would be in his,
because he did like music videos before that, but like this was like his first movie. Like he did Janie's Got a Gun before he did Alien 3.
I'm gonna look it up.
Sure.
I need to.
But it goes back to basics. It's a much more stripped down version of what people were expecting, and I think that was kind of the reason why it got as much pushback as it did, is because it didn't have the same essence of Aliens. And I assume, as an audience member, the idea is acceleration, constant acceleration, moving up. And so to drop back down suddenly is jarring to some people in terms of their consumption of a type of film. But to me, it feels more of a spiritual successor to the original Alien than Aliens.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I mean, we've got a ton of music videos. Yeah, that was this probably freshman, sophomore dip into film.
Mm-hmm.
I think he nailed it. Like, I know, like you said, a lot of people don't like that movie. I really enjoyed that movie.
I fucking love that movie. I think it's
brilliant.
Complex.
It's layered. It has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, watching, give it another chance. Like, just sit back and try to look at it through the prism of a horror movie, and don't try to leave Newt and everyone else in the past, and just kind of view it as its own thing. And I think you might have a new appreciation for it, or maybe not.
I would also say that Alien Resurrection, though it gets a lot of flack, it's a fun fucking movie. That's Jean-Pierre Jeunet, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And I really enjoyed that one too. And I get a lot of shit from people. They're like, "How do you like that one?" And I was like, and you kind of touched on this. We have elements of the true Ripley within this clone, especially with Winona Ryder's character. She kind of views Winona Ryder's character as almost Newt in a way. She becomes very maternal, and I know there's that whole scene at the end with the weird alien.
Yes,
there's that maternal moment. That's a weird one.
It's a weird ass movie. And there's no.
But it circles back to blowing them out the air,
Yeah.
And so I think it's a fine installment.
If this episode has taught anybody anything, don't take anything we say seriously. We both loved Alien Resurrection.
Right. Our street car just went out the window.
We just yeeted that bitch
out the air duct. We blew it out into space.
Oh shit. All right. So
but that's why we're different from everyone else.
That's right. We're not like other girls. But we're gonna start getting out of here. We appreciate you guys hanging out for the time that we've been discussing our top 5 final girls. If you want to find out more about us, where to find us, there's lots of different places. If you're watching us on YouTube, of course, check out all the other content that's there. We've got the top shelf horror stuff, the history of horror. We're adding new stuff all the time, so definitely give that a look. You can follow us on TikTok at Ghoul_kids_table. You can follow us on Instagram at GKT Podcast, and on Twitter at Ghoul Kids Table. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Ghoul Kids Table. And R.Lee, where can they find you personally so they can say mean things about your choices?
Yes. Come and judge me on Instagram at Boris von Frankenberry, or you can stitch any of my videos and judge me on TikTok at R.Lee Grind.
And if you guys want to, say how dumb my list was, by all means, just search Creature Pod wherever you go. Except for TikTok, that's Creature Backup, just because, I talk too much and I never shut up.
Are you sure that's the only reason?
That's the only reason. That's the reason we're going with it.
Okay, yeah, that's safe.
I think that's fair.
Nothing full Monty about that, but
yeah.
Oh, this joke's not dying anytime soon.
Nope, sure isn't. But also, for the Abeyant Tragic Roar, if you want to find her, you can find her on the Tickum Talks at Tragic Rawr, WARAWR.
Cincinnati.
We're not Detroit.
Yeah, but you're still Ohio.
Ooh. There, we got a raw ooh in. So yeah, at least it's like she's here in spirit. Halloween. Super
I guess we should add Ohio. Trash.
Yes, it's not boobs at all.
Not boobs.
This list was all boobs. So.
It was. There's some boobage going on.
There's a lot of bibs.
A lot of bibs.
But that is gonna do it for us. So for Ellen Ripley, for Tragic Rawr, for R.Lee Grind, and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next Thursday. Do I have to still agree, or is it? I already agreed once, so it's good then. If it doesn't want my permission, I don't have to give it my permission. You just come on, just climb on up behind me, and you just get right into it, okay? You just take that thing, Daddy. You just take it from me.
Consent is not required for this clown.
Not this chubby boy either. You ain't got to consent with me, Daddy. Just do what you got to do. Get in there.
Do your thing. Do it.
Do your thing, cuz.
Oh, Jesus.
Tell me she's not on your list.
If that's on your list, I may have to reconsider.
Do your thing, cuz. Do your thing, do your thing, do your thing, cuz.
No. You got more.